She forgot her when he was poor. Now he's a millionaire and begging for her love asterisk. The fluorescent lights of the university library flickered overhead as Elena Rodriguez rubbed her tired eyes, surrounded by nursing textbooks and empty coffee cups. It was nearly midnight, and she had been studying for 12 straight hours after finishing her shift at the campus diner. Her phone buzzed with another text from her mother asking about rent money, a constant reminder of the weight she carried on her young shoulders. "You know, the library closes in 10 minutes, came a gentle voice from behind her. Elena turned to see a young man with kind brown eyes and slightly messy dark hair, carrying a laptop bag that had seen better days. His jeans were faded, and his sweater had a small hole near the elbow, but his smile was warm and genuine. "I know," Elena sighed, gathering her books. "I just need to understand this cardiac cycle before tomorrow's exam. My professor doesn't believe in second chances." "Marcus." "Sterling," he said, extending his hand. "Computer science major and fellow member of the Broke College Student Club. Mind if I help?" "I took anatomy last semester to fulfill my science requirement." Elena hesitated. She'd learned to be cautious about accepting help, especially from strangers. But something about Marcus felt different, safer somehow. "Elena Rodriguez. And honestly, I could use all the help I can get." They moved to a quieter corner where Marcus patiently walked her through the complex processes of the heart, using simple analogies that made everything click. His explanations were clear and patient, never condescending despite her struggles. "With the material, you're going to be an amazing nurse," Marcus said, as Elena finally grasped the concept. "I can tell you really care about helping people. It's all I've ever wanted," Elena admitted. "My little brother James was really sick when we were kids, and the nurses at the hospital were like angels to our family. They made the scariest time of our lives bearable." As they walked across the empty campus together, Elena learned that Marcus was working 3 part-time jobs while maintaining a perfect GPA in his computer science program. He coded websites for local businesses, tutored struggling students, and worked weekend shifts at an electronics repair shop. "What's your dream?" Lena asked, as they reached the fork in the path where they would part ways to their respective dorms. "To build something that matters," Marcus said without hesitation. "Technology that makes life better for ordinary people, not just the wealthy. Want to prove that where you come from doesn't determine where you can go." Over the following weeks, Elena and Marcus began meeting regularly at the library. Study sessions turned into long conversations about their dreams, fears, and the families they were working so hard to support. Lena shared stories about her mother's double shifts at the factory and her brother's artistic talents that he couldn't afford to pursue. Marcus talked about growing up in foster care and his determination to create the stable life he had never known. Their first real date was a picnic in the campus park, paid for with Marcus's tutoring money and Elena's tips from the diner. They shared a cheap bottle of wine and homemade sandwiches while watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "I've never felt this way about anyone," Marcus whispered, tucking a strand of Elena's long dark hair behind her ear. "Neither have I," Elena replied, her heart racing as he leaned closer. Their first kiss was tender and sweet, filled with the promise of young love and shared dreams. In that moment, surrounded by the simple beauty of nature and each other's presence, they felt rich beyond measure. The following months brought both joy and challenge. Elena's mother fell ill, requiring expensive treatment that insurance wouldn't cover. Elena took on extra shifts at the diner, often studying until dawn and surviving on caffeine and determination. Marcus noticed her exhaustion and quietly began helping in small ways, bringing her coffee during late-night study sessions, and helping her with assignments when she was too tired to focus. When Elena broke down crying in the library one evening, overwhelmed by her mother's medical bills and her own academic pressure, Marcus held her close and made a promise that would bind their hearts together. "We're going to make it, Elena, both of us. When we do, we're going to help other people, the way we wish someone could help us right now." "Promise me something," Elena whispered against his chest. "Promise me that no matter how successful we become, we'll never forget what it feels like to struggle. We'll never forget the people we were before we had everything we dreamed of." "I promise," Marcus said, sealing his words with a gentle kiss. "No, nothing will ever change the way I feel about you." As their senior year approached, both Alina and Marcus were achieving their academic goals, but the real world was beginning to intrude on their college bubble. Marcus's senior project, a revolutionary app for small business management, was attracting attention from investors. Alina had been accepted into the most competitive nursing program in the state. They spent their last semester savoring every moment together, knowing that their lives were about to change dramatically. Neither could have predicted just how much. 2 years after graduation, Marcus's small startup had grown into a promising tech company. His business management app had gained significant traction, and venture capitalists were taking notice. Alina had completed her nursing program with honors and was working at City General Hospital, specializing in pediatric care, just as she had always dreamed. But success was changing Marcus in ways that made Alina's heart ache. "I'm sorry, Alina, but I have to cancel dinner again," Kus said over the phone, his voice distracted by the sound of keyboards clicking in the background. "The investors from Goldman are flying in tonight, and this could be the deal that changes everything." Alina stared at the carefully prepared meal she had spent hours cooking after her 12-hour shift at the hospital. It was the third time this month that Marcus had canceled their plans for a business meeting. "This was supposed to be our anniversary dinner, Marcus," she said quietly. "We've been together for 4 years today." A long pause. "God, Alina, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot. Look, let me make it up to you this weekend. We'll go somewhere special, just the two of us." But the weekend came and went, with Marcus locked in his apartment, working on presentations and taking calls from investors. Across different time zones, Alina found herself spending more time alone, wondering when the man she loved had become a stranger who spoke only in terms of market, penetration, and profit margins. The final blow came at a company party Marcus had insisted she attend. Alina felt out of place among the sleek tech professionals in their expensive suits, acutely aware of her simple dress from a discount store and her sensible shoes she wore for long hospital shifts. "So you're the girlfriend?" said a perfectly manicured woman named Stephanie, one of Marcus's new business partners. How quaint that Marcus still keeps in touch with his college friends. "We're not just friends," Alina replied firmly. "We've been together for 4 years. Stephanie's smile was sharp as a blade. "Sweetie, that's adorable. But surely you realize that successful men like Marcus need partners who can move in the same circles, attend the right events, make the right connections." "It's nothing personal. Just business reality." Alina felt as though she had been slapped. Across the room, she watched Marcus networking effortlessly with people who looked nothing like the struggling students they had once been. He caught her eye and smiled, but it was distracted, distant. When they finally made it home that night, Alina's emotions exploded. "Do you even see me anymore?" she demanded, tears streaming down her face. "When was the last time we talked about something other than your company? When was the last time you asked about my work, my dreams, my day?" Marcus ran his hands through his hair, looking genuinely confused. "Alina, everything I'm doing is for us. This company is going to make us financially secure. We'll never have to worry about money again. But what about everything else we'll lose along the way?" Alina shot back. "Promise me we'd never forget where we came from. You promised we'd help people. When was the last time you even asked about the kids I work with at the hospital?" "That's not fair," Marcus said, his voice rising. "I'm working 18-hour days to build something meaningful. You knew this was important to me, more important than us." Alina whispered. The question hung in the air between them like a chasm that neither knew how to cross. The breaking point came 2 weeks later when Alina's brother James called with devastating news. Their mother had suffered a heart attack and was in intensive care. Alina rushed to the hospital, calling Marcus repeatedly, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Alina spent 3 days by her mother's bedside, taking leave from work and sleeping in uncomfortable hospital chairs. Her mother survived, but the medical bills would drain their family's savings. Alina called Marcus again, desperate for the emotional support she had always found in his arms. "I'm in the middle of the biggest presentation of my life," Marcus said when he finally returned her call. "The board is making their final decision on funding tomorrow. Can we talk after that?" "My mother almost died, Marcus," Alina said, her voice hollow with exhaustion and heartbreak. "And I'm sorry about that. I really am. But Alina, you have to understand this deal could set us up for life." "Your mother is okay now, right? so we can handle this crisis together tomorrow." Elena hung up the phone and stared at her reflection in the hospital bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at her was tired, heartbroken, and finally clear about what she needed to do. When Marcus finally came to see her 3 days later, carrying expensive flowers and wearing a suit that cost more than Elena made in a month, she was waiting for him in the park where they had shared their first picnic. "Elena, I got the funding," he said excitedly, apparently oblivious to her somber expression. $15 million. We're going to change everything." "You already have," Elena said quietly. "Just not in the way I hoped." She handed him a letter. She had written during the long hours by her mother's bedside. "I love you, Marcus. I love the man you were, and I love the man I believed you could become. But I can't love who you're becoming." Marcus's face went pale as he read her words, the letter explaining that she was ending their relationship and moving back home to help care for her mother. "Elena, wait," he said, panic creeping into his voice. "This is just a rough patch. Once the company's established, things will go back to normal." "No, they won't," Elena said, tears streaming down her face. "Because this is your normal now. Success and money and impressing the right people. I don't fit into that world and I don't want to. But I love you," Marcus said desperately. "I know you do," Elena replied, her heart breaking with every word. "But love isn't enough when we want completely different lives." She walked away from him then, leaving Marcus standing alone in the park, where they had once believed their love could conquer anything. Neither of them knew it would be 5 years before they saw each other again. The ballroom of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers and the quiet murmur of Seattle's elite. Elena Rodriguez felt distinctly out of place as she adjusted her simple black dress, a stark contrast to the designer gowns. Surrounding her, she was here for the annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala, an event she normally would have avoided. But her position as head pediatric nurse meant she had no choice but to attend. "You look beautiful," said Dr. Patricia Wells, Elena's mentor and the chief of pediatrics. "Stop fidgeting with your dress. I feel like I'm wearing a costume," Elena admitted, watching as perfectly coiffed women air-kissed their way through the crowd. "These people live in a different universe that's about to donate a lot of money to help our kids," Patricia reminded her gently, "including tonight's keynote speaker, who's pledging $2 million for our new pediatric wing." Elena nodded, trying to focus on why she was here. The children she worked with deserved every opportunity for the best care possible, even if it meant rubbing shoulders with people who spent more on a single evening out than most families earned in. A year, the lights dimmed as the master of ceremonies took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker and the evening's most generous benefactor, tech entrepreneur and philanthropist, Marcus Sterling." Elena's blood turned to ice as a familiar figure walked onto the stage. 5 years had changed Marcus dramatically. His hair was perfectly styled, his tuxedo clearly custom-made, and he moved with the confident bearing of a man accustomed to being the most important person in any room. But those were still the same brown eyes that had once looked at her like she was his entire world. "Thank you for this incredible honor," Marcus began, his voice carrying easily through the ballroom's sound system. 5 years ago, I made a promise to use my success to help others, particularly children who are fighting battles they never chose. Elena gripped her wine glass tighter, remembering the promises they had made to each other about helping people, about never forgetting their humble beginnings. As Marcus spoke eloquently about childhood poverty and the importance of accessible healthcare, Elena found herself studying his face, looking for traces of the young man she had loved. He was undeniably successful, undeniably impressive, but there was something missing from his eyes, a warmth that she remembered as clearly as her own heartbeat. The Sterling Foundation believes that every child deserves a chance to dream regardless of their circumstances, Marcus continued. Tonight's donation is just the beginning of our commitment to this hospital and the incredible staff who dedicate their lives to healing. When the applause died down, Marcus's gaze swept across the crowd and their eyes met across the crowded ballroom. Elena saw his composure falter for just a moment, his prepared smile freezing as recognition dawned. She turned to leave, but Patricia caught her arm. "Where are you going? The networking reception is just starting, and I want you to meet some of our major donors." Before Elena could protest, She found herself being led through the crowd toward a group of well-dressed philanthropists. Her heart sank as she realized Marcus was among them, deep in conversation with a stunning blonde woman whose diamond earrings probably cost more than Lene's annual salary. "Marcus, I'd like you to meet our head pediatric nurse, Elena Rodriguez," Patricia said warmly. "Elena has revolutionized our approach to family-centered care." "Elena," Marcus said, his voice carefully controlled. "It's been a long time." "Hello, Marcus," Elena replied, proud that her voice remained steady despite the hurricane of emotions swirling in her chest. The blonde woman stepped closer to Marcus, her arms sliding possessively through his. "Darling, aren't you going to introduce?" "Me, of course," Marcus said, though Elena noticed the slight tightness around his eyes. "Elena, this is Victoria Ashworth, my fiancée. Victoria, Elena, and I knew each other in college." "How lovely," Victoria said with a smile that didn't reach her perfectly made-up eyes. Marcus has mentioned so few people from his university days. "I suppose you've both changed quite a lot since then." "Some of us have," Elena said quietly, her gaze meeting Marcus's. The tension in the small circle was palpable. Patricia, sensing the undercurrents she didn't understand, quickly excused herself to greet other donors. Victoria was pulled away by friends, leaving Elena and Marcus alone for the first time in 5 years. "You look exactly the same," Marcus said softly, his polished exterior cracking slightly. "Oh, you don't," Elena replied, not unkindly but with an honesty that made him flinch. "Elena, congratulations on your engagement," Elena interrupted, not ready to hear whatever he was about to say. "And thank you for the donation. Children will benefit greatly from your generosity." She started to walk away, but Marcus caught her arm gently. "Please don't go. I need to explain." "There's nothing to explain," Elena said, pulling free of his touch. "You made your choice 5 years ago. You chose success, money, a life that fit your ambitions. I chose to stay true to the values we once shared." "We both got what we wanted, did we?" Marcus asked, his voice raw with an emotion that surprised them both. Elena looked at him then. Really looked at him, and for a moment she saw a flash of the young man who had tutored her in the library, who had held her when she cried, who had promised to never forget where he came from. "You tell me," she said quietly, then walked away before her resolve could crumble, as Elena made her way toward the exit. She passed a group of Marcus's business associates discussing his upcoming wedding to Victoria. "A smart match," one of them was saying. "The Ashworth family connections will open doors even Sterling's money can't. And she's perfect for the political aspirations he's been hinting at," another added. "Beautiful, well-connected, knows how to work a room," Lena pushed. Through the hotel doors into the cool Seattle night, gulping the fresh air as if she had been drowning. Behind her, through the glittering windows of the ballroom, she could see Marcus surrounded by his new world of wealth and influence. As she waited for her modest sedan from the valet, a sleek black Tesla pulled up beside her. Marcus stepped out. Having apparently left his own party, "Lena, please," he said, approaching her carefully. "I know how this looks, but it's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," Elena replied, accepting her keys from the valet. "You've become everything you once promised you'd never be. You're engaged to a woman who fits your new life perfectly. You're successful beyond your wildest dreams. You should be happy." "But I'm not," Marcus said desperately. "I haven't been. Happy for 5 years." Lena paused with her hand on her car door. "That's not my problem anymore, Marcus. Made your choices and I made mine. We both have to live with them." As she drove away, Elena caught a glimpse of Marcus in her rear view. Mira's standing alone under the hotel's bright lights, looking more lost than she had ever seen him. Marcus couldn't concentrate on the merger documents spread across his mahogany desk. 3 days had passed since the charity gala. He couldn't stop thinking about Elena's eyes when she looked at him, the disappointment and sadness that cut deeper than any anger could have. "Are you even listening to me?" Victoria's sharp voice cut through his thoughts. Marcus looked up to find his fiancée seated across from his desk, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming impatiently on the leather chair's armrest. He honestly couldn't remember what she had been saying. "I'm sorry, what were you discussing?" Victoria's lips tightened into a thin line. "Marcus, the caterer needs our final selections by tomorrow, And you've been completely distracted ever since that hospital fundraiser. Right, the wedding, Marcus said, the words feeling strange in his mouth. Whatever you think is best, Victoria. You have excellent taste. That's not the point, Victoria snapped, rising from her chair to pace his office. A marriage is supposed to be a partnership. I can't plan our entire future by myself while you daydream about whatever is consuming your thoughts. Marcus studied his fiancée as she moved around his office like a caged tigress. Victoria was undeniably beautiful, sophisticated, and perfectly suited to be the wife of a tech billionaire. She understood his business, moved effortlessly through high society, and never asked him to be anything other than successful. So why did he feel like he was suffocating whenever he thought about spending the rest of his life with her? You're right, Marcus said finally. I'll try to be more present. It's that nurse, isn't it? Victoria said suddenly, stopping her pacing to fix him with a piercing stare. The one from the gala? Alina something? What about her? Marcus asked, though his carefully neutral tone probably gave him away. You knew her in college. I could tell by the way you both acted. There was history there. Marcus considered lying, but Victoria was too intelligent to be fooled by anything less than the truth. We dated in college. It ended years ago, dated, Victoria repeated, her voice dripping with skepticism. Is that what you call it when a man looks at a woman like she hung the moon? Victoria, that's ridiculous. Alina and I haven't seen each other in 5 years. Exactly my point, Victoria said, moving to stand behind his chair, her hands resting on his shoulders. 5 years and one chance encounter still has you completely distracted. That tells me everything I need to know about your feelings for her. Marcus shrugged away from her touch, suddenly unable to bear the contact. I'm sorry if I've been distracted. It won't happen again. But it did happen again. Over the following days, Marcus found himself driving past City General Hospital on his way to and from work, though it was completely out of his way. He researched Elena's career, learning that she had been promoted to head of pediatric nursing and had implemented several groundbreaking programs for family support. More troubling were the dreams that had started visiting him nightly. Dreams of study sessions in the university library, of quiet conversations about their hopes and fears, of Elena's laugh when he told her silly jokes to ease her stress. He would wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there, his chest tight, with a longing he had spent 5 years trying to ignore. The breaking point came when Marcus attended a board meeting for his charitable foundation. As they discussed potential recipients for their next round of grants, someone mentioned a program at City General Hospital. It's quite innovative, the program director was saying. The head pediatric nurse has created a support system for families of critically ill children. It includes counseling, financial assistance, and practical help like childcare for siblings. The results have been remarkable. What's the nurse's name? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Alina Rodriguez. She's been leading the program for 3 years now. The hospital administration says she's transformed their approach to patient care. After the meeting, Marcus found himself standing outside City General Hospital, staring up at the pediatric ward windows. Almost without conscious thought, he walked through the main entrance and took the elevator to the children's floor. The pediatric ward was a revelation of color and warmth. Hand-painted murals covered the walls, depicting fantastical forests and friendly dragons. Comfortable seating. Areas were scattered throughout the corridors, and the nursing station was decorated with children's artwork. Can I help you? Asked the young nurse with kind eyes and a smile that reminded Marcus painfully of Alina. I'm looking for Alina Rodriguez, Marcus said. I'm Marcus Sterling from the Sterling Foundation. We're considering a grant for the family support program. The nurse's face lit up. Elena's amazing. Right. She's in the family conference room right now, but I can let her know you're here. Before Marcus could change his mind, he found himself being led down a hallway lined with photographs of smiling children and their families. Through an open doorway, he could see Alina sitting with a young couple, a baby in the woman's arms. Surgery went perfectly, Alina was saying, her voice gentle and reassuring. Dr. Martinez says the repair was even more successful than he hoped. Emma's going to be able to go home in a few days. The woman began crying with relief, and Alina reached over to squeeze her hand. I know it's been scary. Heart surgery on a 6-month-old baby is terrifying for any parent. But Emma's strong, and she has wonderful parents fighting for her. Marcus watched from the doorway as Elena continued to comfort the couple, offering practical advice about post-surgery care and connecting them with support resources. This was the Elena he remembered, the woman who had always put others' needs before her own. When the family left, Elena looked up to see Marcus standing in her doorway. Her expression immediately became guarded, professional. "Mr. Sterling," she said formally, "I wasn't expecting you." "I wanted to learn more about your family support program," Marcus said, though they both knew that wasn't entirely true. "It sounds innovative." Lena gestured for him to sit across from her at the small conference table. "It's nothing revolutionary. We just recognize that when a child is sick, the whole family needs care and support." As Elena explained the program, Marcus found himself watching her hands as she gestured, remembering how those same hands had once comforted him during his own moments of doubt and fear. She was still beautiful, but there was a new strength in her bearing, a confidence that came from years of meaningful work. "The hardest part," Elena was saying, "is the families who don't have insurance or financial resources. We see children who need surgery, medications, ongoing care, and their parents are forced to choose between their child's health and keeping a roof over their heads." "That must be heartbreaking," Marcus said softly. Elena looked at him then, really looked at him as if trying to see past the expensive suit and polished exterior to the man underneath. "It is, but it's also inspiring. These families fight with everything they have for their children. They remind me every day what really matters in life." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Marcus found himself leaning forward, drawn by the passion in Elena's voice, the fire in her eyes that he had missed more than breathing. "Elena," he began, but she held up a hand to stop him. "I should get back to my patients," she said, rising from her chair. "If your foundation is interested in supporting our program, you can have your people contact our development office." She moved toward the door. Marcus stood up abruptly. "Do you ever think about us? About what we had?" Elena paused, her hand on the doorframe. "Every day for the first 2 years," she said quietly. "And then I realized that thinking about the past was keeping me from building a future." "What if I said I made a mistake?" Marcus asked desperately. "What if I said I've regretted every day of the last 5 years?" Elena turned to face him, her eyes filled with a sadness that made his chest ache. "Then I'd say it's too late. You're engaged to a woman who fits perfectly into the life you chose. And I've built a life that has meaning and purpose, even if it doesn't have the love I once dreamed of." "Elena, goodbye, Marcus," she said firmly, and walked away, leaving him alone in the conference room, surrounded by pictures of children whose lives she had helped save. That night, Marcus sat in his penthouse apartment, staring out at the Seattle skyline he had once dreamed of conquering. Victoria was at her book club, and the silence felt oppressive. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to truly examine his life, to acknowledge the growing emptiness that success couldn't fill. He had everything he had once thought he wanted, but the woman who had shared his original dreams was gone, placed by someone who loved his achievements more than his heart. Elena stared at the bouquet of white orchids on her kitchen counter. The same flowers Marcus had brought to their study sessions years ago. They had arrived with a simple note: "These always reminded me of you, pure, beautiful, and stronger than they appear." It had been 2 weeks since his visit to the hospital, and the flowers were the third gift he had sent. First came a check for $50,000 made out to the family support program. Then a box of her favorite chocolate from the little shop near their old campus. And now the orchids. Her phone buzzed with a text message: "Have dinner with me, please. Just once. I need to explain everything." Elena set her phone aside without responding, just as she had ignored his previous messages. She couldn't afford to let Marcus back into her heart, not when she had finally found peace in her life. But peace, she was learning, wasn't the same as happiness. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to the pediatric ward. Elena looked up from her charting to see a young man with paint-stained fingers and Lena's own dark eyes standing at the nurse's station. James. Elena hurried over to embrace her younger brother. "What are you doing here? Is Mom okay?" "Mom's fine," James assured her, though his expression was troubled. "I came to talk to you about Marcus Sterling." Lena's stomach dropped. "How do you know about Marcus?" Found me, James said simply. Tracked me down at my studio and commissioned a painting. But Alina, he didn't want it for himself. He wanted me to paint something for the children here at the hospital. Alina followed James down the hall to the main playroom, where she stopped short. Covering the largest wall was a magnificent mural that hadn't been there the day before. It depicted a magical forest where children of all backgrounds played together, healthy and happy, while gentle creatures watched over them protectively. It's beautiful, Alina whispered, her eyes filling with tears as she noticed that several of the painted children resembled patients she had cared for over the years. He remembered everything, James said quietly. Every story you ever told him about your patients, every description of a brave little kid fighting an impossible battle. He asked me to paint hope. James, you can't possibly know he loves you, Alina, her brother interrupted. The way he talked about you, the way his face changed when he said your name. He's not the same person who hurt you 5 years ago. Before Alina could respond, her phone rang. It was Dr. Wells asking her to come to the administrative offices. Immediately, Alina found her mentor waiting with a group of hospital executives, all wearing expressions of barely contained excitement. Alina, please sit down, Dr. Wells said. We've just received the most extraordinary proposal. The hospital's chief financial officer leaned forward. The Sterling Foundation wants to endow a chair in pediatric nursing in your name. They're offering $5 million to establish the Alina Rodriguez Center for Family-Centered Care. Alina felt the room spin around her. That's impossible. That's too much money. Don't. There's more, Dr. Wells continued gently. Mr. Sterling has requested that you oversee the center's development and serve as its first director. The position would allow you to expand your programs nationally, training nurses across the country in your approach to family support. It's everything you've dreamed of, added the hospital administrator. It's a chance to impact children's health care on a massive scale. Alina excused herself and walked to the hospital's rooftop garden, needing air and space to think. The offer was beyond her wildest dreams, the opportunity to help countless families facing their darkest hours, but accepting it would mean acknowledging Marcus's role in her professional life, creating a connection between them that would be impossible to ignore. She was still standing there an hour later, and she heard footsteps behind her. I thought, I might find you here, Marcus said softly. Alina didn't turn around. You can't buy your way back into my life. I'm not trying to, Marcus replied, moving to stand beside her at the garden's edge. The endowment has nothing to do with us. It's about recognizing the incredible work you're doing and giving you the resources to do more. And if I said I wanted nothing to do with anything connected to your name, then I'd have the lawyers transfer everything to an anonymous donor? Fund, Marcus said without hesitation. Your work is too important to be limited by my mistakes. Alina finally looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. Why now, Marcus? Why are you doing this? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city skyline. Do you remember what you made me promise the night your mother was in the hospital? You made me swear that no matter how successful we'd never forget what it felt like to struggle. You broke that promise a long time ago. I did, Marcus admitted. And it's taken me 5 years to find my way back to the man I used to be. The man you loved. Lena felt tears threatening. The man I loved wouldn't have let success change him. He wouldn't have chosen money over the people who mattered. You're right, Marcus said, turning to face her fully. I can't undo the choices I made. But Alina, seeing you again, seeing the incredible work you're doing, it reminded me of who I wanted to be when we were young and full of dreams. What about Victoria? Elena asked quietly. I ended our engagement this morning, Marcus said, his voice steady. It wasn't fair to either of us. I was trying to marry the life I thought I wanted instead of fighting for the one I actually needed. Elena's breath caught. Marcus, I'm not asking you to forgive me, he continued quickly. I'm not even asking for another chance, though I'd spend the rest of my life trying to earn one. I'm just asking you to believe that the man who loved you in college, who promised to help people and never forget where he came from, that man still exists. He's finally ready to keep his promises.